Fleet Commander Sirvex stood at the observation window of his flagship, the Vigilance of Carthon. His 4 eyes watched the stars pass by as his ship moved through the endless dark of space. Behind him, his officers worked quietly at their stations. The soft hum of the ship's engines was the only sound. Sirvex was old, even by the standards of his people. The Velkari. He had served the Galactic Concord for 200 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched young species take their first steps into the stars. He had seen wars end and peace treaties signed. Nothing surprised him anymore, or so he thought. "Commander," said his tactical officer, a young female named Kira Set. "The intelligence reports on the humans have arrived." Sirvex turned from the window, his gray skin wrinkled as he frowned. "Humans?" "Yes. The new species from the Orion Spur." "What do we know?" Kira Set pulled up the data on the main screen. Images appeared of a small blue planet, third from its yellow sun. The planet was covered in water and green land. It looked peaceful. Beautiful, even. "They call their world Earth," Kira Set said. "They achieved faster than light travel approximately 80 years ago. Their technology is primitive compared to Concord standards. Their ships are slow. Their weapons are basic. Their territory is small, limited to a few dozen star systems." Sirvex nodded slowly. This was typical for young species. They always started small. They always needed guidance. The Galactic Concord had been helping younger species for 4,000 years. 12 spacefaring civilizations worked together to maintain peace and order across the galaxy. They had rules. They had protocols. They had ways of doing things. "What else?" Sirvex asked. Kira Set hesitated. Her large eyes blinked twice, a sign of discomfort among the Velkari. "There is something unusual about them, Commander." "Unusual how?" "Their history." Kira Set changed the display. Now, the screen showed images that made Sirvex's stomach turn. Burning cities. Massive explosions. Soldiers fighting in mud and blood. Ships sinking in dark oceans. Mushroom clouds rising over destroyed landscapes. "Before they reached the stars," Kira Set said quietly, "they spent centuries killing each other. War after war after war. They developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet. They came close to extinction multiple times. Not from outside threats. From themselves." Sirvex stared at the images. He had seen violence before. The galaxy was not always peaceful. But this was different. This was a species that had turned all its intelligence, all its creativity, all its energy toward the art of killing its own kind. "How did they survive?" he asked. "We do not know, Commander." Somehow, they stopped. They united. They reached for the stars instead of each other's throats. But the violence is still in their history. It is part of who they are. Sirvex considered this for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "Young species are often aggressive. They grow out of it. The Concord will guide them, as we have guided others. There is no need for concern." He turned back to the window, dismissing the matter from his mind. Humans were not his problem. His mission was simple observation. Watch the new species. Report back to the Concord. Recommend a timeline for first contact. But the universe had other plans. 3 hours later, an emergency signal came from Concord Command. Sirvex read the message, and his blood ran cold. The Drathkul Collective was moving. The Drathkul were a nightmare from the past. They had once been part of the Concord, but they had been expelled centuries ago for their crimes. They were slavers. Conquerors. They traveled from system to system, capturing entire populations and selling them across the black markets of the galaxy. The Concord had pushed them to the outer edges of known space, but they had never been destroyed. Now they were back, and they were heading straight for human space. "How many ships?" Sirvex demanded. 200, Commander. A full harvester fleet. 200 warships, against a species that had only been in space for 80 years. The humans would be slaughtered. Their people would be taken as slaves. Their world would be stripped of resources and left as a dead rock, unless someone stopped it. "Orders from Concord Command," Kira Set reported. "We are to intercept the Drathkul fleet and protect the humans. 40 ships have been assigned to our task force. Sirvex nodded. 40 Concord ships against 200 Drathkul. The odds were not good, but Concord technology was superior. They might be able to hold the line long enough for reinforcements to arrive. More importantly, this would be the perfect opportunity for first contact. The humans would see the Concord arrive to save them. They would be grateful. They would accept guidance. They would join the Concord as a junior member, under Velkari protection. It was how these things always worked. Set course for human space, Sirvex ordered. Maximum speed. Sirvex. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel. Stars blurred into lines of light as they crossed the vast distances between systems. Sirvex spent the journey reviewing everything they knew about humans. Their culture, their languages, their leaders. He wanted to be prepared for the moment of first contact. He imagined how it would go. The humans would be afraid. They would see the Drathkul coming and know they could not win. Then the Concord fleet would arrive. Like heroes from the sky, the humans would be so relieved, so thankful. They would probably weep with joy. Sirvex allowed himself a small smile. He had done this many times before. He knew exactly how primitive species reacted when they met their betters. 3 days later, the Concord fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of human space. "Commander," Kiraset said, her voice strange, "we are detecting a vessel on approach." "Human?" "Yes, Commander. Just one ship." Sirvex almost laughed. "One ship?" The humans were sending one ship to meet a fleet of 40 Concord vessels? Either they were very stupid, or they did not understand the danger they were in. "Open a channel," he said. "Let us introduce ourselves and explain the situation." The poor creatures must be terrified, but as the human ship grew larger on his view screen, Sirvex felt the first small seed of doubt plant itself in his mind. The ship was big, much bigger than it should be, and there was something about the way it moved, something about its shape, that made his instincts scream a warning. He pushed the feeling aside. They were just humans, a young, primitive species. What could one ship possibly do? He was about to find out. The human ship emerged from the darkness of space like a monster rising from deep water. Sirvex watched it approach on his view screen, and with every passing second, his confusion grew. The ship was massive. 3 kilometers long, at least. It dwarfed every vessel in his fleet. Its hull was black, so black that it seemed to swallow the light of nearby stars. Strange angles and sharp edges covered its surface. It did not look like a ship built for exploration or trade. It looked like a weapon. A giant, terrible weapon. "That cannot be right," Sirvex said. "Check your readings." Kiraset's hands moved quickly across her console. "I have checked them 3 times, Commander. The ship is real. It is called the Thermopylae. It is a warship. Impossible. The humans have only been in space for 80 years. They cannot have built something like this, but the evidence was right in front of his eyes." The Thermopylae continued its slow approach, and the closer it got, the more details became visible. Gun ports lined its sides, hundreds of them. Massive doors on its front suggested weapons too large to imagine. The ship moved with a confidence that made Sirvex uncomfortable. "They are hailing us, Commander." Sirvex straightened his uniform and tried to compose himself. This was still first contact. He was still the representative of the Galactic Concord. He would handle this with dignity and grace. "Put them through." The view screen flickered, and a human face appeared. It was a female, with dark hair pulled back tight and brown skin that reminded Sirvex of polished wood. Her eyes were calm. Too calm. She wore a black uniform with gold markings on the shoulders. Behind her, other humans worked at stations filled with screens and controls. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Navy vessel Thermopylae," the human said. Her voice was steady and clear. "We welcome the Velkari hegemony to human space." "How may we help you?" Sirvex blinked. She was welcoming them? She was asking how she could help? This was not how first contact usually went. Usually, the younger species were nervous, confused, desperate for answers. This human spoke like she was in complete control. "I am Fleet Commander Sirvex of the Galactic Concord," he replied. "We have come to warn you of a grave danger. A hostile fleet is approaching your territory. 200 warships of the Drothkul Collective. They are slavers and destroyers. Your people are in terrible danger." He expected fear. He expected panic. He expected the human to beg for help. Instead, Captain Vasquez smiled. "We know," she said simply. "You know? We have known about the Drothkul for 6 months, Commander. We have been tracking their fleet since they entered this region of space. We appreciate your concern, but human space is under human protection. We do not require assistance." Sirvex could not believe what he was hearing. "Captain, I do not think you understand. 200 warships are coming. The Drothkul have conquered dozens of species. They will destroy your colonies. They will take your people as slaves. You cannot fight them with one ship. We are not fighting them with one ship." Vasquez's smile grew slightly wider. "We are stopping them with one ship." There is a difference. Behind Sirvex, his officers exchanged worried glances. Kira Set leaned close to him and whispered, "Commander, I am running deep scans on the human vessel. The readings are strange." "Strange how?" "The power signature. It is rising. And it is already higher than our entire fleet combined." Sirvex felt something cold move through his body. He turned back to the view screen. "Captain Vasquez, I must ask, what exactly is your ship?" 17. Vasquez considered the question for a moment. Then she stood and walked closer to her camera. So her face filled Sirvex's screen. "Commander, when humanity first reached the stars, we expected to find a peaceful galaxy. We hoped for friends. We dreamed of cooperation. But we are not a foolish species. We spent 10,000 years at war with ourselves. We know what intelligent beings are capable of. So we prepared for the worst." She gestured around her ship. "The Thermopylae is a Titangent-class dreadnought, one of 12 that guard human space. We do not build large fleets of small ships. We build weapons. Commander, singular, overwhelming instruments of absolute force. Each Titangent-class vessel is designed to face an entire enemy fleet alone and win." Sirvex stared at her. His mouth opened, but no words came out. "Your Concord limits weapons development," Vasquez continued. "You believe that peace comes from everyone being equally weak. Humanity has a different philosophy. We believe peace comes from being so strong that no one dares attack us." But why?" Sirvex finally managed to ask. "Why would you build such things if you want peace?" Something changed in Vasquez's eyes. For just a moment, Sirvex saw sadness there. Deep, old sadness. "Because we remember what we did to ourselves," she said quietly. "We remember the wars, the bombs, the millions dead. We will never let anyone do that to us again. Not our own people, not aliens, no one." An alarm began to sound on the Concord flagship. Kira Set's voice was tight with fear. "Commander, the Drothkul fleet has arrived. They are dropping out of faster-than-light travel now. 200 ships confirmed." On the view screen, Vasquez nodded. "Right on schedule. Commander Sirvex, I suggest you move your fleet back to a safe distance. And I suggest you record what happens next. Your Galactic Concord will want to see it." "What are you going to do?" Vasquez turned away from the screen and walked toward her command chair. As she sat down, she looked back at him one more time. "I am going to teach the Drothkul why humanity should be left alone." The channel closed. Sirvex stood frozen for several seconds. Around him, his officers waited for orders. In the distance, 200 Drothkul warships were forming into attack position, and between them and the Concord fleet, the human dreadnought Thermopylae began to move forward. Alone. "Commander?" Kiraset asked. What do we do? Sirvex took a deep breath. He had served the conquered for 200 years. He had seen many things. But he had never seen anything like this. Pull the fleet back, he ordered. Maximum safe distance. And make sure every ship is recording. I want every sensor pointed at that human vessel. You are just going to let them fight alone? Sirvex watched the Thermopylae grow smaller on his screen as it flew toward the enemy fleet. 1 ship against 200. It should have been suicide. It should have been a joke, but somehow, deep in his gut, Sirvex knew it would be neither. I have a feeling, he said slowly, that the humans do not need our help. But I also have a feeling that after today, the galaxy will never be the same. He was right on both counts. The Drathkul were ugly creatures. Sirvex had seen images of them before. But seeing Warlord Kethrix on his view screen made his skin crawl. The Drathkul leader had gray, scaly skin and a face full of sharp teeth. His eyes were red and filled with hunger. Behind him, his crew laughed and growled, excited for the slaughter to come. Attention, primitive species, Kethrix announced, his voice broadcast across all frequencies. I am Warlord Kethrix, of the Drathkul Collective. Your world now belongs to us. Your people will serve us as slaves. Surrender now, and we will kill only half of you. Resist, and we will kill everyone except the young ones. They sell better at market. More laughter from the Drathkul crew. The Thermopylae did not respond. Kethrix's smile faded slightly. You there, in the big black ship. I am talking to you. Did you not hear me? Surrender? Or die? Still no response. The warlord's red eyes narrowed. He was not used to being ignored. He had conquered 30 species across the galaxy. Entire worlds had begged at his feet. This silence was an insult. Fine, he snarled. All ships, attack formation. Destroy that ship and take whatever survives. I want prisoners. 200 Drathkul warships moved into a sphere around the Thermopylae, surrounding it completely. There was no escape now, no retreat. The human ship was trapped, or so the Drathkul believed. Watching from a safe distance, Sirvex held his breath. His entire fleet had their sensors locked on the human vessel. Every piece of data was being recorded. Whatever happened next, the Galactic Concord would see it. A channel opened from the Thermopylae. But Captain Vasquez was not talking to the Drathkul. She was talking to Sirvex. Commander, I hope you are recording. What you are about to see is what humanity calls a proportional response. Remember this. Tell your Concord. Tell every species in the galaxy. Tell them what happens when you threaten human space. Sirvex wanted to respond. But before he could speak, the human ship began to change. Panels along its hull slid open. Weapons emerged. Hundreds of them. Gun barrels, missile tubes, energy projectors. The Thermopylae, which had looked terrifying before, now looked like death itself. Every surface bristled with instruments of destruction. Kiraset read the sensor data aloud, her voice shaking. 12 spinal-mounted mass drivers. They fire solid tungsten rounds at 12% of light speed. 400 missile batteries, each carrying antimatter warheads. Point defense systems covering every angle, and something at the front. A large energy weapon. I have never seen anything like it. The power readings are impossible. What kind of power? Sirvex asked. Commander, that weapon is channeling the output of a contained stellar reaction. A piece of a star, held inside their ship, focused into a beam. Sirvex could not speak. His people had never imagined such a thing. The Concord had never imagined such a thing. Who built a weapon using a star? Humans. Humans built weapons like that. The Drathkul, unaware of what they faced, opened fire. Thousands of plasma bolts streaked toward the Thermopylae, a storm of green energy that should have vaporized any normal ship. The bolts hit the human vessel's shields. Nothing happened. The plasma fire splashed against an invisible barrier and disappeared. The shields did not flicker. They did not weaken. They simply absorbed everything the Drathkul could throw at them. On the Thermopylae, Captain Vasquez spoke one last time. Her voice was calm, almost sad. This is your final warning. Leave now, and you will live. Stay, and you will die. This is not a negotiation. This is not a threat. This is a fact. Warlord Kethrix screamed his response. All ships, maximum fire. Destroy them. The Drathkul fleet poured everything they had at the Thermopylae. Plasma bolts, missiles, energy beams. The space around the human ship turned bright with weapons fire. The shields held. Then the Thermopylae responded. The first volley was the mass drivers. 12 streams of tungsten rounds, each one moving so fast it was nearly invisible, tore through the Drathkul formation. Ships exploded. Not damaged, not disabled, exploded. One moment they were there, the next moment they were expanding clouds of debris. The missiles came next. 400 warheads launched in perfect waves, each one seeking a target with cold machine precision. The Drathkul tried to shoot them down. They failed. Antimatter detonations lit up the darkness of space like tiny suns being born and dying in seconds. But the worst was the weapon at the front of the Thermopylae, the one that used the power of a star. Vasquez called it the Nova Lance. A beam of pure white light erupted from the human dreadnought. It swept across the Drathkul formation in a single smooth motion, and everything it touched ceased to exist. Ships did not explode. They did not burn. They simply vanished, turned into atoms by temperatures that existed at the heart of stars. 40 ships died in that single sweep. Sirvex watched in horror. His officers were frozen at their stations. Some had tears in their eyes. They had never seen anything like this. No one in the galaxy had ever seen anything like this. The battle, if it could be called a battle, lasted exactly 4 minutes and 31 seconds. When it was over, 11 Drathkul ships remained, 11 out of 200. They were the ones furthest from the Thermopylae when the shooting started. They were already running, their engines pushing as hard as possible to escape the nightmare behind them. The Thermopylae did not chase them. Captain Vasquez opened a channel to the fleeing ships. Go home. Tell everyone what you saw here. Tell them what happens when you threaten humanity. If you come back, there will be no survivors next time. No witnesses, just silence. The Drathkul ships disappeared into faster-than-light travel, fleeing as fast as their engines could carry them. Silence fell over the battlefield. Debris from 189 destroyed ships floated in the cold void. Small fires burned where oxygen had not yet run out. Bodies drifted among the wreckage. And in the center of it all, completely undamaged, the Thermopylae turned slowly and began moving back toward the Concord fleet. Sirvex finally found his voice. Status of the human ship. Kiraset checked her readings twice before answering. No damage, Commander. Their shields never dropped below 90%. They expended approximately 3% of their ammunition. 3%. They had destroyed an entire enemy fleet, using 3% of their weapons. The channel from the Thermopylae opened again. Captain Vasquez appeared on screen. She looked tired. Not triumphant. Not proud. Just tired. Commander Sirvex, the threat to human space has been eliminated. We thank the Galactic Concord for its concern. However, as you have now seen, humanity is capable of defending itself. Sirvex swallowed hard. Captain Vasquez, I have served the Concord for 200 years. I have seen many battles. I have never seen anything like what you just did. Vasquez nodded slowly. I know. And I wish you had not needed to see it. We do not enjoy killing, Commander. We do not celebrate death. But we will not allow our people to be taken as slaves. We will not allow our worlds to burn. If that means destroying our enemies completely, then that is what we will do. She paused, and something like pain crossed her face. Tell your Concord what you saw today. Tell them humanity wants peace. But also tell them what happens if anyone tries to take that peace away from us. We will not show mercy. We will not negotiate. We will simply end the threat, whatever the cost. The channel closed. Sirvex stared at the black screen for a long time. Behind him, his officers waited for orders. The wreckage of the Drothkal fleet drifted past the viewports. Finally, the old commander spoke. Set course for Concord space. I need to deliver this recording personally. The galaxy needs to know about humans. As his fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, Sirvex looked back one more time at the Thermopylae. One ship had changed everything, and suddenly, he wondered how many more ships like that humanity had hidden in their small corner of the galaxy. The answer, he suspected, would terrify everyone. Sirvex could not sleep. For 3 weeks after the battle, he lay awake at night watching the recording over and over again. The white beam of the Nova Lance, the silent explosions, the calm voice of Captain Vasquez offering one final warning before unleashing destruction. He had shown the recording to the Galactic Concord. The reaction had been chaos. Some leaders refused to believe it was real. Others demanded immediate action against humanity. A few sat in stunned silence, understanding what this meant for the balance of power they had maintained for 4,000 years. But no one knew what to do, because no one had ever faced anything like humans before. 3 weeks after the battle, Sirvex sent a message to Captain Vasquez. He asked to meet in person. He needed to understand these creatures who built weapons of stars and spoke of peace in the same breath. To his surprise, she agreed. She invited him to Earth. The journey to the human homeworld took 5 days. Sirvex brought only a small delegation, 6 officers and 2 diplomats. He wanted this to be a conversation, not a confrontation. As his ship entered the Sol system, the home system of humanity, Sirvex finally understood how badly the Concord had underestimated these people. By the ancient stars, Kiraset whispered. Look at this. Defense platforms surrounded every planet. Massive structures bristling with weapons hung in orbit around Jupiter and Saturn. Mining operations covered the asteroid belt, producing materials at a rate that exceeded entire Concord industrial sectors. And the ships. Sirvex counted 8 more Tangent-class dreadnoughts patrolling the system. 8 vessels identical to the Thermopylae, any one of which could destroy a fleet. But there were also smaller ships, thousands of them, frigates, cruisers, carriers, a full navy, hidden away in this small corner of the galaxy. How did we miss this? One of the diplomats asked. How did our intelligence not know? Sirvex shook his head. We saw what we expected to see. A young species, primitive technology, small territory. We never bothered to look closer. His ship was escorted to Earth orbit by 2 human cruisers. As they approached the blue planet, Sirvex saw the final surprise. Earth's moon had been transformed. Its surface was covered with installations, weapons platforms, sensor arrays. It was no longer just a moon. It was a fortress, designed to protect the planet below from any attack. They turned their moon into a weapon, Kiraset said in disbelief. Sirvex just nodded. Of course they had. These were humans. They turned everything into weapons. Captain Vasquez met him at the landing platform. She wore a simple uniform, different from the one she had worn on her ship. Her hair was loose now, and she looked less like a warrior and more like a tired leader carrying a heavy weight. Commander Sirvex, welcome to Earth. He followed her through the city. It was called New Geneva, the capital of the United Earth government. Tall buildings rose toward the sky. Vehicles moved through the streets without making sound. People walked everywhere, humans of different colors and sizes, going about their daily lives. Sirvex watched them carefully. These were the same creatures who had built the Thermopylae, the same species that had created the Nova Lance. But here, they looked so normal, so peaceful. Vasquez led him to a building overlooking the ocean. They sat on a balcony as the sun began to set, painting the water in shades of orange and gold. You wanted to understand us, Vasquez said. Ask your questions. Sirvex had prepared many questions, but in that moment, only one mattered. Why? Why did you build those weapons? You say you want peace, but you have created the most powerful instruments of war the galaxy has ever seen. How do those two things fit together? Vasquez was quiet for a long moment. She watched the sunset, and her eyes held memories that Sirvex could not imagine. Do you know what the 20th century was, Commander? By your calendar, about 350 years ago. I know some of your history. Then you know we almost destroyed ourselves. We built nuclear weapons. Bombs that could level entire cities in a single explosion. And we used them. We pointed them at each other, and came within minutes of ending everything. Our world wars killed hundreds of millions of people. We poisoned our own planet. We created systems of cruelty and oppression that defied understanding. She turned to look at him. We know what we are capable of. Commander, we have seen our own darkness. We have lived through it, and when we reached the stars and discovered we were not alone, we had a choice to make. What choice? We could trust the galaxy to be kind. We could hope that other species would welcome us, protect us, treat us fairly, or we could prepare for the galaxy to be exactly as cruel as we once were to each other. She stood and walked to the edge of the balcony. We chose preparation. We decided that no one would ever do to humanity what we once did to ourselves. No invasions. No slavery. No genocide. Whatever it took to prevent that, whatever weapons we needed to build, whatever cost we had to pay, we would pay it. Sirvex considered her words. The Concord believes that limiting weapons creates peace. Everyone stays weak, so no one can threaten anyone else. Vasquez laughed. But there was no humor in it. And how well has that worked? The Drathkul still exist. They have been raiding and enslaving for centuries. Your Concord could have stopped them, but instead you pushed them to the edges of space and hoped they would go away. You maintain peace by ignoring the suffering of those outside your protection. She turned back to face him. Humanity does not believe in that kind of peace. We believe that evil must be confronted, destroyed, not managed, not contained, but ended. If that means building weapons that terrify the galaxy, then so be it. But you could conquer anyone, Sirvex said. With your power, you could rule everything. Yes, we could. Vasquez sat back down, suddenly looking very tired. And that is why we do not. Because we know where that path leads. We have walked it before. Empire. Conquest. Domination. It always ends the same way. In fire and blood and millions of dead. She met his eyes. We built our weapons to protect ourselves, Commander. Not to rule others. We have no interest in your Concord's politics or territories. We just want to live our lives, raise our children, explore the stars in peace. But we will not be victims. Never again. Sirvex sat in silence as darkness fell over the ocean. He thought about everything he had seen. The power of the Thermopylae. The defenses of Sol System. The history of humanity written in war and suffering. And he thought about the woman sitting across from him. A warrior who hated war. A protector who had killed thousands. A human, in all their terrible contradiction. What do you want from the Concord? He finally asked. Respect, Vasquez answered immediately. Not as children to be guided, not as primitives to be managed. As equals, we will trade with you, share knowledge with you, even help you if you face threats you cannot handle alone. But we will not be your subjects. We will not follow your rules. Our space is our own. And if the Concord refuses? Vasquez smiled, and for just a moment, Sirvex saw the steel beneath her tired exterior. Then we continue as we are, building our ships, training our soldiers, watching the galaxy from our corner of space, and hoping that the Concord is wise enough not to make the same mistake the Drathkul made. Sirvex nodded slowly. He had his answer. He understood humans now. As much as anyone could understand them. They were not monsters. They were not conquerors. They were survivors, shaped by thousands of years of killing each other, who had finally learned the price of violence. They had looked into the darkness of their own souls and decided to become something different, but they had never forgotten what they were capable of. And that, Sirvex realized, was what made them so dangerous. Not their weapons, not their technology, but their absolute certainty that they would use everything they had to protect what they loved. "I will carry your message to the Concorde," he said. "I will tell them what I have seen, what I have learned." Vasquez nodded. "Thank you, Commander. I hope they listen." So did Sirvex, because if they did not, if they tried to force humanity into submission, he knew exactly what would happen, and he did not want to see the galaxy burn. The Galactic Concorde had not seen such chaos in 1,000 years. Sirvex stood before the Grand Assembly, the recording of the battle playing on massive screens behind him. Representatives from all 12 species watched in horror as the Thermopylae destroyed the Drathkul fleet in less than 5 minutes. When the recording ended, the shouting began. "They are a threat to all of us," screamed the representative from the Korath Empire. "We must unite and destroy them before they destroy us." "Attack them? Did you not see what they did?" the Velkari delegate responded. One ship against 200. And they have 12 of those vessels. Perhaps more. Then we build more ships. We develop better weapons. We match their power. That would take decades, centuries perhaps. And what happens if they see us arming ourselves? What happens if they decide we are the threat? The arguments continued for hours. Some wanted war. Some wanted peace. Others simply wanted to pretend humanity did not exist and hope the problem would go away. But none of them understood what Sirvex understood. He had been to Earth. He had looked into Captain Vasquez's eyes. He knew the truth. Humanity did not want war. But humanity was ready for it. And no force in the galaxy could change that. 6 months passed. The Concorde debated and argued while the galaxy continued to turn. Trade routes stayed open. Borders remained quiet. Humanity stayed in their corner of space, watching and waiting. Then the Drathkul returned. Not with 200 ships this time, with 2,000. Warlord Kethrix had been killed by his own commanders after his humiliation at human hands. But his brother, Kethvral, had united the scattered Drathkul clans with a simple promise: revenge. He had gathered every ship, every weapon, every warrior the collective could produce. The largest hostile fleet in centuries was moving toward human space. Sirvex heard the news and felt cold despair. 2,000 ships. Surely, even humanity could not fight that many. He was wrong. The human response came not with 12 dreadnoughts, but with one. A new ship. Larger even than the Thermopylae. Its name was the Manifest Destiny. And it was the most advanced vessel humanity had ever built. Captain Vasquez was there too, commanding the Thermopylae as part of a support force of cruisers and frigates. But it was the Manifest Destiny that moved to meet the enemy fleet alone. Its commander, Admiral James Chen, broadcast a single message as the Drathkul Armada approached. "This is the United Earth Navy vessel Manifest Destiny to all Drathkul ships. You are entering human space without permission. This is your only warning. Turn back now, or you will be destroyed." Kethvral laughed at the message. He ordered his fleet to attack. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, the Drathkul collective no longer existed as a military power. Kethvral was dead, killed by his own officers who tried to surrender before it was too late. 1,700 ships were destroyed. The survivors fled in every direction, their fleet broken, their leadership gone. Their dreams of revenge turned to ash. The Manifest Destiny had taken minimal damage. After that day, everything changed. The Galactic Concorde called an emergency session. This time, there was no argument, no debate. Every species had seen the recordings. Every leader understood the truth. Humanity was the most powerful force in the galaxy, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. The vote to recognize humanity as a sovereign power was unanimous. Not as a junior member, not as a species under protection, as an equal. The first new equal voice in the Concorde in 4,000 years. 3 months later, Sirvex returned to Earth. This time, he came as an official ambassador, the representative of the Velkari hegemony to the human government. It was a position of honor, given to him because he was the first Concorde officer, to truly understand what humanity was. Vasquez met him at the same building in New Geneva where they had spoken before. She looked better now, less tired. The threat of the Drathkul was gone, and with it, some of the weight she had carried. Commander, or should I say, ambassador now, she smiled as they shook hands. Welcome back to Earth. Captain, it is good to see you again. They walked through the city together. It was summer, and the streets were full of people enjoying the warm weather. Children ran through a park, laughing and playing. Musicians performed on street corners. Artists displayed paintings in outdoor markets. Sirvex watched all of it with a strange feeling in his heart. These were the same creatures who had built weapons that could destroy civilizations, the same species that had ended the Drothkul threat in 11 minutes of violence. But here they were, laughing and singing and creating beauty. I do not understand your people, he admitted. You are capable of such destruction, such terrible violence. Yet you live like this. Happy, peaceful, full of art, and music, and joy. Vasquez nodded slowly. They stopped at a bench overlooking a fountain where children played in the water. Let me tell you something, Ambassador. Something that I think explains everything about humanity. She sat down, and Sirvex sat beside her. We spent 10,000 years learning how to kill, how to destroy, how to make war in ways that other species cannot imagine. We became very, very good at it. Too good. We saw where that path led. We looked into the abyss of our own destruction and pulled back at the last moment. She watched the children playing, and her eyes were soft. We know what we are capable of. We have seen our own darkness. And that is exactly why we fight so hard to protect the light. Sirvex considered her words. You build weapons of stars because you love peace. Yes. We love peace because we know the alternative. We protect beauty because we have destroyed so much of it. We defend life because we have taken so much of it. She turned to look at him. Every human child is taught our history. The wars, the suffering, the moments when we almost ended ourselves. We remember it all. Not to glorify it, but to warn ourselves. To remind ourselves of what happens when we forget our humanity. The Concord thought you were dangerous because of your weapons, Sirvex said slowly. But that is not true. Is it? No. We are dangerous because of what we are willing to sacrifice. A species that truly understands the cost of war, that has paid that cost in the blood of millions. That species will do anything to protect what it loves. Anything. A little girl ran past them, chasing a ball. She laughed as she caught it and ran back to her friends. Vasquez watched her with something that looked like love and sadness mixed together. We built the Thermopylae for her. We built the Manifest Destiny for her. We built every weapon, every ship, every defensive platform for her and children like her, across all of human space, so they can play in parks and laugh at fountains and never, ever know the horror of what we were. What we could be again, if we are not careful. Sirvex understood then, finally, completely understood. Humanity was not dangerous because they were violent. They were dangerous because they had learned to control their violence, to aim it, to use it only when necessary, and then unleash it without mercy or hesitation. They were the galaxy's most perfect warriors precisely because they hated war. What happens now? He asked. The Concord has accepted humanity as equals. The Drathkul are gone. What will your people do? One. Vasquez stood and stretched. What we have always wanted to do. Explore. Discover. Meet new species and learn from them. Build things instead of destroying them. Become better than we were. She offered him a hand, and he took it, standing beside her. But we will never forget. We will always watch. We will always be ready. Because the galaxy is vast and dark, and somewhere out there, someone else might decide that humanity looks like easy prey. Her eyes hardened for just a moment. And if that day comes, we will remind them why that was a mistake. Just like we reminded the Drothkul, just like we will remind anyone who threatens our children, our worlds, our future. Sirvex looked around at the beautiful city, the happy people, the children playing in the summer sun, and he thought about the 12 dreadnoughts orbiting somewhere above, ready to unleash the fury of stars on any enemy who dared approach. Guardians, he realized. That was what humans were. Not conquerors or destroyers, but guardians. Protectors of a peace they had bought with oceans of their own blood. The galaxy had expected monsters when they met humanity. Instead, they found something far more terrifying. They found a species that knew exactly what it was capable of and had chosen to become something better anyway. A species that would sacrifice anything to protect what it loved. A species that had walked through the fire of its own violence and emerged on the other side with a single, unshakable purpose. Never again. As Sirvex walked through the streets of New Geneva with Captain Vasquez beside him, he understood that the galaxy had entered a new age. The age of humanity. Not an empire of conquest, but a shield against the darkness. And somewhere in the back of his mind, the old ambassador smiled. He had served the Concord for 200 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species destroy themselves and others. But he had never seen anything like humans, and he suspected he never would again.